going to go ahead and get started. So again, hello everybody, and welcome to this virtual panel discussion on how to remain positive when your whole life and your whole world seems to be falling apart. As a reminder, all of the resources that are mentioned, as well as a recording of this presentation, as well as the prior ones, are on the resource page at nsaspeaker.org/COVID-19. During tonight's discussion, our panelists will deliver hope and inspiration with some practical tips on how to remain positive and how to deliver on your promise during these turbulent times and in the next normal. So as always, we encourage you to submit your questions to the Q&A panel on Zoom. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, go ahead and post your questions, and Matt from our team will feed them into the Q&A. Please welcome tonight's panelists, Jason Hewlett and Marquita Miller-Joshua. We're actually going to start with a question for the audience. If you guys could think about it and type in the chat, what is your daily promise to your business? And go ahead and post your answer in the chat, and then we'll come back to it a little bit later. So Jason, while people are typing their responses, let's imagine that your calendar is essentially empty if you're a full-time speaker. So how do you decide what to work on every day to move forward in your business?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Mary Lou. This is wonderful that you're doing this, and I'm excited to talk to everybody out there about keeping this promise. And I even posted mine in there that I'm going to wake up daily. I mean, just waking up early enough to get all my work done. That's one of my first, foremost promises. And you know, rather than just setting a goal, I like to make a promise. So that's kind of the language I like to use. But if you're sitting there wondering, what do I do now with an empty calendar? What do I do with my day? I mean, if you're financially free, you can just work on some legacy projects, things you've never gotten done, and the to-do projects that have lived on your calendar forever. That's awesome. If you're not on the financially free list like me, then this is what I'd recommend you do. I would say you need to figure out what it is that you're going to deliver to your clients when your calendar starts to fill up again. So you could force yourself into booking something, which will force yourself to learn all of this technology that we've had to learn, which is a good route to take. But rather than waiting for the bookings to come, my recommendation is to spend your time working on your performance in a virtual situation, just because this might be how we do this for a long time. And it's not like this is some big pivot that I've finally made. I am playing catch up. This is something I should have done a long time ago. And I'm still figuring out things like my voice matching up with the video because I have so much working in here right now. For example, your audience knows this about me. I am a musical artist and I do music and impressions. And in order for me to do that, I have to put in another headphone to even hear it. So I'm going to play a song and see if anybody can hear it. Can you hear the music? This is how we do it. This is Bob Dylan. Here we go. Hey, Mr. Quarantine Man, stay at home for me. I'm not sickly, but I don't want you to get sick too. Hey, Mr. Quarantine Man, this is NSA in the spring. And if you don't like it, well then go watch The Tiger King. So does that make sense? I have a lot of work to do to be able to just deliver one comedy bit. And that's what I've been working on.
I like how you distinguish between if you have the financial reserves and you have those long-term projects, absolutely, great time, focus on getting some of those done. But if you don't, investing in your business every day, like I imagine your setup was a bunch of little steps every day to get to where you're at today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could even show you just on this one other camera shot. You see, I've got also a GoPro here. If it's okay to show the audience that I switch it out, I'm going to show you right now my actual setup so they can see that it is a lot of stuff. There's the soundboard, there's the iPod, there's the iPad, there's me on all the screens. I'm just saying there is a lot going on here, and I've never done this before. And so, are we practicing it? Are we taking the time to go through it and testing with our peers, our friends, our family in order for when we get paid to be really incredibly good at it?
Very good point. Marquita, so some of the answers in the chat are really about connecting with mentors, connecting with colleagues. What are you doing? What's your daily promise to your business?
Well, my daily promise to my business is to show up for my customers at the time that is this is a critical time for them. And so I need to show up more than ever before for them at this time and be present. So that's my daily promise for my business from that standpoint.
So how do you, Marquita, keep your personal positivity? You're a very positive person. How do you keep that in the midst of all of this chaos and when it seems like there's little to no good news or relief? How do you keep that focus?
I've really learned that we have to find the good news because our situation really could be different no matter what we're facing. I always often tell clients, and I say to even myself, no matter what the situation I'm facing, there's still someone who would trade my bad day, for their good day, right? And so, and I can say that from a place having lost a spouse for that I was married 23 years ago. I was married 23 years to him, and I lost him 5 years ago. And so I can say that today, still from that spot, that that was a really tender moment, a hard thing. But I thought about a young lady who lost her entire family in a boat ride. And so I was like, wow, yes, I lost a spouse, but I had my children, I had other family members to support me. So there's always something that you can find to be grateful for and to see that you still have goodness that's happening. And so I think we have to be intentional. That's really key.
So Jason, one of your blog posts on LinkedIn fairly recently was about um, gifts. And I thought you had a really interesting perspective on that, and it's really wrapping into gratitude. Could you talk a little bit about that? And then what are your energizers? Because you remain very positive.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a lot going on right now, and so how do we stay positive? And in my opinion, it comes down to celebrating the wins on a daily basis, because the wins seem to be so few and far between. However, we can find them if we really search them out. For example, today I had an SBA loan finally fund as I've worked on it for almost 2 months. Now, that's not me like saying, let's go spend all that money. Now that's like, okay, I have a parachute. I'm so grateful I have that. I've never done loans or any kind of asking from the bank. And so this has been tricky for me. The other way I really found to stay most positive is by not going on social media as much as possible. And I know that for a lot of people, that's their community, that's their space and place. But I was on there at the beginning of the quarantine a lot to see what was going on. Eventually it became too much to handle. And so I made a promise to myself every morning I would not wake up and check social. I would not check my email. I would not check the news. I'm going to fill my day with the certain things that will fill me up. And that actually keeps me excited and happy. And then, of course, what I'm doing in this office with my virtual setup to be able to deliver to the clients that are interested in having me do it. The video setup is very exciting to me. And so even though each day I realize a lot of what's not available that I need is on Amazon and it's back ordered or out of stock, I'm still pushing, and each day I go, I'm getting closer, this is almost good. That's how I stay positive, I'd say.
That's awesome. With Marquita, going back to social media. So how do you brave social media? And even if you're off social media, what about like those group masterminds where either everybody seems to have it all together and you don't, or even worse, everybody on there is like in super downer mode? How do you
Well,
deal with that?
Yes. So one of the things that I do believe in how I start my day from this standpoint, and it's typically not being the first thing to go right on social media. But I do think it's important to be social because we are not able to have a lot of face-to-face time. And so social media is affording you the opportunity to be able to connect with individuals. And so in that connecting, like you said, you're going to find people that seem like they have it all together. They're winning and nothing's wrong. The sun is shining just perfectly. And I really purpose to not get in a place, because one, you got to not get in a place of where you are questioning that, or you're thinking, wow, why is that not me? You know, and their happiness can create sadness for you. You don't want that to be the case. You really want to celebrate that person. And you also have to remember that media is media. There's what is shown, and then there's the behind the scenes. We all know that, right? If I showed you my behind the scenes of the camera, you'd be like, whoa. So there's transparency. And I think that it affords us the opportunity, if you are in a mastermind or you're in connection and there's negativity. Now that is one that I really monitor very closely, because we all have friends that are having bad days or things that happen, and you want to be present. You really want to be present for your friends. You want to be present for those when they're having a moment and hear them. But when it becomes, that's a difference between when it starts to become toxic. You know, we've all met people who seem to have a problem for every solution, right? And so in that case, this is an opportunity for you to be a change agent, to really be intentional and change the conversation, and to put out challenges to help keep the mastermind positive, not diminishing what's happening, because there are some bad things happen. I had a client, it was a dear friend that passed away last Thursday. So I get it. There are some real life things happening. But even in the midst of that, how can you turn the conversation to positive things? Because you have got to guard your positivity gate, because fear and negativity really can diminish your creativity. And in this stage, that creativity is gold. That your ability to be able to look at something and say, what opportunities do I see? Jason mentioned that. What opportunities do I see? What things can I do differently? How can I take advantage of this time? You will miss that if you get stuck in the rut of being negative, of really absorbing and drinking the negative Kool-Aid. Do not drink the Kool-Aid of negativity. Figure out how to stay positive. Figure out how to stay grateful. I was driving to work and I saw a homeless individual, because my company's still essential. And I thought to myself, wow, we're practicing social distancing, but this person is homeless. How does he practice hygiene and he's homeless? So there are so many things that in the midst of what you're seeing, what you're hearing, however it's impacting you, you figure out how to go back to being grateful, and then you guard your gate on negativity. Guard the gate on negativity. You've got to keep it positive, because in your positivity, that is where your genius will get revealed.
Yeah, and it is hard because the negative emotions are more contagious, like anxiety and fear are highly
Yes.
contagious. And so it is hard to really guard against that. So I love that advice. Jason, the next question is for you. How do you share authenticity, especially vulnerability, fear, and frustration, as a motivational speaker? Because authenticity is what people are really craving today, because they're craving that connection. So how do you share that while being a motivational speaker?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one right there for a lot of people, especially in a social media life and situation that we live in, where we only see the best of everything and everyone at all times. And so how can we still be authentic without being depressing, but how can we still be authentic and share what's really going on and how we get through it? One of the things I know is it's fascinating to watch what a leader can do, but it's even more interesting to know what they went through to lead. And so I love the backstory of somebody who's, you know, an Abraham Lincoln or somebody, all the struggles he goes through in order to make things happen. And so I found, in fact, that this has worked very well for me as far as the sharing of vulnerability authentically, the struggle I'm going through, but that how it still matters to what I do. In other words, I shared recently an experience where I went walking, and I just kept walking. I go walking every day. That's one of my promises to myself, is to walk, and that's not just for health, that's for mental health and physical. And I'm walking, and all of a sudden I find myself at the end of my community, a place I've never been. And there's just a bunch of newly laid foundations of homes, and I heard a dog barking. luckily I didn't have my earbuds in listening to anything. I was actually talking into my phone in a voice memo, telling myself how sad I am and how non-essential my job is, because I was, you know, so frustrated and helpless in every way. And as I was talking and being frustrated, I heard a dog bark. And I kept walking and I heard the dog bark louder and louder. And as I'm passing these foundations, I noticed a dog down in the foundation, a little pug, little white pug, like a, oh, help, 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 help. And I went, what are you doing down there? I was talking to him. There was no homes anywhere, just the foundations that were new. And he wasn't stuck in the cement. I just climbed down in the window well, grabbed him, put him out of the window well, and I climbed out, and he was standing there waiting for me and rubs against my legs like, oh, thank you, roar, 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 you know. And I go, go home, you're free, go. And he ran off. And I realized that in my helplessness, I was all of a sudden given a chance to be helpful. And it wasn't to the financial sector, it wasn't to the clients that I was hoping to be essential for. It was to this little sweet animal that I will never see again. Most likely, you know, unless he comes to me as like a horse later, like, thank you, you know, but I'm just saying, this changed my perspective of how can I share authentically, vulnerably, that I was going through something sad and trifle, and at the same time, I can make it positive by sharing the story, and now it's become a story I'm telling on stage as to how we can shift our mindset just by noticing that we can be helpful. That's how we stay positive, in my opinion. Sharing what we're going through and finding the lesson within it.
So Jason, a question's come in specifically for you. When you are in a low or a doubtful moment, how do you resist the temptation to jump to a quick solution? And then I want to hear from you, Marquita, on that answer as well.
Ooh, I love that question. So I would say that I would go to my journal and I would go to either my peer group or my family group that I trust their suggestions for me. So there have been times where I felt the panic online because everyone else is doing stuff so fast and I got so low that I was like, I got to jump and do this real quick. The fact is, if I can pause and look at my life from a bird's eye view and be able to write in my journal and say, what is my purpose? What is my promise? And then I'll stay the course. And usually we know what we should be doing. It's others that are making this panic attack to us and taking us too low. I hope that makes sense. That's how I deal with it.
That totally makes sense. It is really hard, though, sometimes to pause, like especially with the pressure and all that. Marquita, how about you?
So, you know, that leads me to like my daily promise for myself. We talked about business. And one of the things that's a daily promise for myself is to make no excuse and get the results. And so whatever is facing, I just really have to say, okay, remove the excuse out of it and find the way, and not negating that there's real things happening. I have real emotions, and we all have that moment where we're like, okay, how will this ever change? How will this ever bounce back? But if I can remove that excuse that I'm making, because there's still someone that is doing amazing things. There's still opportunities. There's still companies that are open. So if I remove the excuse that is forming, or the lie, if you will, that, okay, the world is ending. No, it's really not. There's still opportunities. There are still people hiring. And so remove the excuse or remove the lie and replace it with, let me get results. What can I do to get results? I have found that to really help push me forward, for me to be able to work what I have. Because right now you could be thinking, and I was in that place, I was like, wow, okay, there's so many things that I cannot get done because of social distancing. But what can I do with what tools that I do have and the ability that I do have and the time that I have? So
that's a great answer. So for the audience, I would ask you to put in chat, what's your daily promise to yourself? We did the daily promise to your business. What's your daily promise to yourself? And Jason, what's your daily promise to yourself?
Oh, I was just typing mine up in the chat. I already said, I'll post it in a sec, but one of the first things I do is I wake up and I do my best to not jump right into work and not jump right into the news and everything, because that can change my mindset. So I do my best to wake up, kiss my wife first, kiss my children. I usually wake up earlier than all of them. And that's another thing I do is I do wake up quite early and earlier than I did before all this. And I actually do my hair and I get dressed and I shave my beard down a little bit. And I just look like I'm ready to live life. I don't throw in a cap. I don't just keep the pajamas on. I'm ready to go in case an opportunity arises. And for me, even if nothing's going to happen that day, just knowing I'm dressed and I woke up early, and then I've got a good one for you. I also spend a good amount of time writing in my journal and forgiving myself for everything I didn't get done yesterday. Because I push myself very hard. And because I'm a motivational guy, but that also means that I'm very hard on myself. So I've learned to forgive me, and that for me is keeping a promise to myself. So I'm going to type some of that in while Marquita answers. I'm excited to hear her answer.
So Marquita, some of the, a couple of people have typed in meditation, spend time with their spouse. You answered your question, but what about your daily routine?
So my daily routine is I do start the day so one of the things the night before is I believe in dumping it. Whatever was on my mind, I dump that, write down whatever I didn't get done, whatever task that I need to do. So when I wake up in the morning, that allows me the opportunity to have my devotion and then to look at the task that I've already wrote down and then look at my calendar so that I can see what it is I need to do. And then I begin to go into my day from that standpoint. And so I do still get most of the days, probably at least 3 to 4 days, I'm coming into the office still. So that is forcing me to show up in presentation with getting dressed and things like that from the standpoint. But I think it's important how you start your day and how you end your day. Those are very critical things. And so, because it's just proven, and we've all had it, I've done it where I go to sleep and I got things racing through my mind and you're not resting. You're not really truly resting. And so when you can dump that at the end of the night, that somehow connects to the morning, at least for me. So that when I wake up, I can look and say, okay, this is what I didn't get done. This is what I need to do. This is what's my day ahead. And it allows me to be, I feel like the day's not happening. I'm happening to the day.
Nice. So what about when you first started that? Was that, because I love what you said about dumping the day, because I know like several of us, like we're up all night, like thinking things are running through our head, whether it's excitement for new ideas or it's, oh, I didn't do this, to your point, Jason. If you're just start with that, just dumping it, writing it down, would you expect that you would experience relief right away? You think that's more like, what's that process like for people who would just be starting it?
Would start. Now, in the beginning, you have to slow yourself down to really to think about, because your mind is racing and you've got all the cares from your family to work related things, your personal things that have gone, you got all this stuff racing. So you really have to train yourself to stop. Someone mentioned about meditating. And so even to do that effectively, you have to train yourself to get quiet. So you do have to train yourself. It's a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but when you just stop and you build that time in, maybe 15 minutes before you go to sleep, to write it down, it will become natural. Now, if I don't do it, I feel really weird and I have to get back up and do it. And so it becomes a habit. You know, we talk about the things you repeat becomes a habit. It'll become a habit. But when you first start, just spend that time, the last 15 or 20 minutes of just, you owe it to yourself. You've given to everybody all day, right? To your family, your spouse, your kids, to clients. You owe it to yourself to end the day by giving something to you. And the gift you're giving to yourself is to remove all of the thoughts so that you can truly rest. And when you wake up, you'll be fresher and you won't feel like you're playing chase all the time. Because I have lived there where it was like, yes, I went to sleep, but I don't think I ever really rested because the night and the day were together and I'm running out the door and I'm like, I didn't forgot about that. And it's chaos. And and I can remember those days. It was frustrating. That day would start so off and you feel just off, right? Off base. And so you're like, I want to pause. You're creating that pause by how you setting up the ending of your day.
Nice. Lisa typed in the chat, truth, Marquita. Connor typed in that he deliberately commutes to work He literally takes his desktop from his office and brings it to another workspace, cranks it up, and off we go. So it's a mental commute, but it
Right.
works. That's a really interesting idea and a
That is.
great
Hmm.
suggestion. Jason, Rob said that was awesome that you saved the pug. If it was him, he would have kept it. So, so with you, now you're in your home full time. When you were really used to being on the road, traveling quite a lot as a speaker, how do you maintain your discipline, Jason, and your motivation? And then how do you also how do you work from home with all of the distractions?
Well, Marquita and I were talking offline about when we do our daily walk, and she does hers in the morning. I take mine at night. So I guess mine is my evening, the
It's true.
processing of everything. It's been wonderful, and so we have our times we can create those. For me, that's been my daily dump, if you will, on that. But here's some tips for the work from home parent that's sitting there going, how do I get anything done? Like, how can I run a business still? What we do in our house, we do 3 daily mini meetings with our children and our family. We sit down in the morning and we talk about what's supposed to happen that day. We get them in their work zones and they have their tools. And if they need to use the computer at this time and this kid can read a book, or this kid could read to that kid, or my wife can do this while I'm doing this. And then my wife comes in and does this while I go out and help with the kids. I mean, we're negotiating that on the first meeting in the morning. It's a 5-minute meeting. Then we do another one at noon before we eat lunch together, and we figure out what didn't happen that morning, because usually it doesn't happen like you want, right? And then and then we actually are talking about what are the promises we made as a family for a family activity, let's say, or what are we having for dinner, or are we going to go out this night of the week, because we try to do one time a week where we go out and support local business. And then we do an evening meeting, which is a bit longer. It's a devotional. And we talk through the wins of the day. We talk about highs and lows, and everybody cheers. And I mean, we're just keeping this fun but interesting for the children. And we've set up boundaries. So if my door is closed to my office, the kids know I'm either on a call like this, or they have to very carefully ask if I'm available. Equally, they have their boundaries and work zones. And so we've just trained everyone to not need parenting entertainment at all times, where they can do their own thing, and they're old enough now to do that. We have kids from the ages of 8 to 14, so we're in a really cool spot. And then I think that integrating the kids into business has been really cool for us too. My daughter's helping me set up my TikTok account. My son is helping me edit videos. I'm learning all the dance moves that every overweight, dad is supposed to know. And so I'm learning that too. And then, of course, we have the non-negotiables with our family, whether it's doing the puzzle, being together, watching a movie, making sure to not become a workaholic when this quarantine could be something they'll always remember for our time together. And so I also do my daily workout. These are some of the ways I do it. But, Mary Lou, I did put together pretty much 2 weeks into the pandemic quarantine. I put together a video course that's free for anybody watching if they want to get it. And the course is actually something that I'm really excited about, because it's called The Promise of the Work from Home Parent During COVID-19 and Coronavirus Quarantine. And really all you're seeing as I'm scrolling here is just, there are a few modules and some videos that are part of it. You'll go through your promises and your goals, but then it's free, like I say. Category 1's the promise to your job. What's your promise there? There's a few videos for that. Promise to your family is the next category. And I just give tips and ideas as to how to keep promises to yourself, and finally to your community. So if anybody wants to grab that, we'll put that up in the link as a nice thing that we can offer tonight. And I don't know how long it'll be available or even relevant, but for the work from home parent, obviously, that's something that would be helpful at this time. And I hope that people can apply some of it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are struggling with the schools being closed, right? And then they're trying to do that Zoom, and it may or may not be working. And so it's really, really difficult right now for people who also have children working from home. Marquita, how do you make the best of this time to be both influential in your business, so your content creation, your marketing, positioning yourself for the recovery, while also being a great person to be in quarantine with?
So one thing that I started doing is I make Fridays follow up Friday. And so I love this. I had did this some time before and just got so busy and stopped. So this gave me an opportunity to go back to it. On Fridays, I reach out to like 10 people that I haven't, not people that I normally talk to on a regular basis. We all got our circle, right? That we talk to, but these are people that I haven't talked to. And this has been the best situation because it's allowed me, and most of the conversations are not very long at all, because most of the time they're shocked to hear from me. And I say, I'm just really quickly messaging you. Either I'm messaging them or calling them just to touch base with you, to see how you're doing, to see what's going on in your world, to check on you. How are you? Because safety is an issue right now. And so from there, it affords me the opportunity to catch up with them, and then for them to catch up and hear what's going on in my world as well. And I cannot tell you about how that's rolled over to opportunities. And I was really doing it just to post touch people. And so just on Saturday, I had someone who called me because he knew I was doing that. And he was my old mentor from like 10 years ago. And so a CEO of a bank who's now retired. And so it was just so great to catch up and connect with him and hear about his family and have that time. And then from there, he said, hey, I got a board position coming open. Would you consider being on the board with us? And so those times make it really, sometimes it's just a conversation. Being able, it may not lead to business, and it doesn't have to always from that standpoint, but just the touch to hear someone and allow them to know that so many people will say, I'm so glad you called. I can't believe you just called. You didn't want anything. People need that right now, just to know that someone cares and you're not asking for a deal. You're not asking for a board position. You are just calling them to touch base. And so we all hear the thing, your net worth is your net worth. So, but this is a time to really invest in that. And so from the quarantine thing, so I don't have young children. So in our house, it looks a whole lot different. I told you about I was married before, and my late husband passed. Well, I've gotten remarried this past September, so I haven't been married a year. And so our house, and I have 2 adult children that are returned from college and are working. So everyone has their room and doors are closed when I leave to go to the office typically, or come back from my walk, because they're doing their business in there. So I have made Saturday a family fun day. So the last 2 Saturdays, one Saturday we had a luau. And so they didn't think I was going to do this. I wanted a theme. I had the music going and food going. And it forced everybody to come out of their rooms. I called it out of their corners and out of their work to stop trying to just work and have some fun and bond. And that allowed us, with younger children, it's a lot easier sometimes to have the conversation with older children that are certainly adults on their way out, to say, how are you feeling? What's going on in your world? What's going on with your friends? So that happened. And then last Saturday we had old school party jam. And so every Saturday now they're like, what are we doing next Saturday? So at first they kind of thought it was corny. They're like, no. But so I've coined myself the Saturday fun person. So you just have to be intentional, because the thing, Jason said it, and Marilee, you also mentioned it, that when we walk away from this, we're all going to walk away with experiences, period. And what those experiences are going to be made up of some things that we don't control, but also of things that we do control.
Yeah, I think that is a really salient point. When we were talking earlier before we went live, you had talked about how sometimes it's nice to speak to people outside of your circle, and maybe just gives like a fresh perspective. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Just being able to, for example, this is so cool. I'm so excited about this. So this came up on Follow Up Friday, a person that she had commented on one of my posts. And so Saturday I messaged her and said, hey, can we have a chat? Someone I never had met. We had never talked. And we are literally, because she's outside my circle, she's helping me with this whole Zoom thing. Jason's talking about he's catching up. Jason looks like he's caught up to me. I'm really catching up, okay? And so in the midst of that, because we weren't in the same world at all from the standpoint of things. Our paths may not have crossed from that standpoint, but we were intentional. And I think she's probably on this call. We were intentional about pausing and talking and seeing what things did kind of overlap. And so we're actually going to play together by doing something that's empowering, because we both discovered we had a common bond for helping to inspire each other, inspire other people. And so I can tell you, I would have never known her before COVID. I did not know her before COVID-19. Had I not been intentional, whatever's going to happen from that opportunity that we're going to do would not have happened. So there are some really amazing things that you can create, and opportunities come through people.
Yeah,
And
and
relationships.
that's just such an excellent point. And Jason, you had another story about a friend that called late at night and you almost didn't answer. So I do think in these times, like reaching out to people, even people outside of your network, either it can lead to business or it can be a really deep emotional connection. Jason, are you comfortable talking a little bit about that call?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, I was going to bed. It was 11:30 on a Saturday night, and I'm like, I'm done. I've talked to everybody I need to for the whole week, and then all of a sudden my phone rings. It's a friend who's not like my best friend, but he's a friend, and I said, "Oh, I need to answer this to my wife," and she goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, just a sec." I went out in the hall, and it's my buddy who had just gotten done doing a virtual presentation because he does comedy late at night, and it was in front of no one. And so he was devastated with how there was no like interaction, there was no laughter, and he needed somebody to laugh with him through the jokes of just the struggle of doing that. And so as we talked, and he didn't necessarily say it that way. I just figured, I know what you're going through, man. I've done plenty of events with people there where they don't laugh, But now especially he needs somebody to laugh. So I put my shoes on, my coat on. I went outside, and I'm walking for an hour and a half, talking and listening to him tell me all of his challenges in life, and we are laughing our heads off. And it was so cathartic and beautiful. And I was like, I'm so glad I answered the phone. He needed that, and I needed that. Even though it was outside of kind of my boundaries that I've created so that I'm not being, hit at by everyone at all times, we both needed it, and it came at the perfect time for both of us. And it just made me realize, gosh, we're all going through something crazy right now. Even if talking until 1 a.m. with somebody who's not your best friend or your family member, now he's even closer to me. I think we'll always be bonded. And by the end, he said, "Jason, thank you for answering the phone. Like, I didn't know if you would." And thank you. And I don't know if that means I'm a jerk usually. I don't know, but he's like, "Thank you for answering."
So, Jason, you are switching your entire business model from onstage events to more of a virtual delivery of events and speeches. One of your recent blog posts talks about how you did that a little bit differently with the company. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure I'm switching it up because I have to and I want to. I've always wanted to be able to do this. I mean, hey, if they still want to pay me to get on a plane and go somewhere, I'm thrilled. Just pay me a lot, pay me my fee, and I'm there. But can I do it from my house? Yes. So I've got this house set up. However, can I make it so that it's a seamless transition from me being on an actual stage to this? And this is still a hard thing for a lot of us that are used to being on the stage and performing and having everyone take care of all the aspects that we've never thought about or been educated on. And so what I did, and let me show you here, I actually posted online that I went to this place called Web. It's set up in Salt Lake City, Utah. And what's cool about Web is that, as you can see, there's nobody in the chairs there. I was just doing this event for a company called Zingular. And Zingular still had their event. They just had a couple of people running the cameras. They only had a few people backstage that were running all the necessary pieces. But you can see, it's not me running that switcher. It's not me worrying about the lights or the cameras. I was just on stage doing my dance, and I was performing to no one. The cameramen were silent. The whole room was quiet. but I was giving my all, and this was a screenshot of what it looked like because we integrated pre-records, live feeds. This is another view from what people saw. And they had this thing that was like a software that allowed the people to log in and see this. This was the very opening of the event for Zingular, this company. As I scroll down, you'll see that you know, you could scroll down and start commenting as they were watching. And so everyone felt a part of it. And then my shot jumped right over to the side. And I told people to take selfies by their computers. And let me tell you, this company and their people that watched this flipped out. They thought it was going to be a Zoom call or, you know, something where it was a bunch of talking heads. When it was a full performance, I mean, you can see some of these comments. There were people saying, we're watching from all over the place. This is the best first session. Amazing. I can't believe it's awesome. And just having a wonderful time. And it was so cool to be able to introduce. They only had 4 executives there on site. And all the rest were pre-records or looped in through the broadcast. And people were putting these gifs of like dancing and clapping, and they loved it. So whether you're doing this from your house or you're doing this from a professional place like that where they handle all of this, it's very, very special that somebody like this would do this for that event. And it made such a difference to this company to feel they were there. And it made such a difference to me as a performer and speaker to not have to worry about my bandwidth, my internet speed, the mowing lawn next door. This was on a sound stage. And so it was very special. It's called Web, and they're in Salt Lake City. I'm sure there will be locations around the country setting this kind of thing up in the future, but I thought everyone would get a kick seeing how cool that was.
So, yeah, I think that is really cool. As you're making the switch, I mean, you've mentioned that there are people that were already doing this and you're a little late to the field. Obviously, to Marquita's point, you have caught up. But how do you make sure that you don't fall into the comparison trap and then get completely overwhelmed with the amount of work that needs to be done?
I mean, just being able to switch over to this virtual thing has been just so difficult for me, just to be able to get to a space where I'm okay with no laughs, no standing ovation, no clapping. However, the comparison trap comes in when, let's say we're at NSA at Influence and we see come to stage, we see Willie Jolly, Jeannie Robertson, Connie Podesta, and Mark Scherenbrock, okay? You're a brand new speaker, even 5 years in. You see legends of the stage stand up there and you're like, I stink, I'm the worst, I hate myself. Like, that is a comparison trap. But we're watching people, and respectfully to them, they have been on stage for decades. They have done this for their career. We're now comparing ourselves to people who are a bit ahead of the game with the virtual thing, with the better cameras, with the lights and the sound. My whole thing about not comparing is to say, what is the best performance I can put forth possible with what I have to utilize right now? That's it. What is my best practice? And I'm practicing every single day. And it's not just about, you know, let me show you what else. I mean, even if you're sitting there going, what do I do to share that which I have? Look at the top of the screen. I've shared right there what I saw Vin Zhang do, who's a very, very amazing guy. He wrote, update. If you're looking for a virtual option for your events, click this link to view my virtual page. So I've stuck that on my website currently. And as I scroll down, you'll see where it used to come right into like, hey, I'll get on a plane and come to you. Now the first thing you scroll down and see is that I do virtual events. And whether, you know, here's a video of me at Web where I was on that nice, pretty stage. Now, you might think, I don't have any of this footage. Well, just start collecting it. If you're on a Zoom call, take a snapshot. I have 3 options. I can do option 1 at my home. I can do 2, which is the live virtual showroom in my home. And the 3rd is with the web studio. But I'm just showcasing what I have right now. It does not look perfect. It does not need to. You know what? We need to just have something. and stop comparing ourselves, stop getting down about ourselves, and keep a promise to just do one thing a day, just one thing a day, and then you slowly build up. Eventually, someday, maybe I'll be like Willie Jolly on a stage. That would be amazing for me. But it's not happening overnight, and it's not going to happen in your virtual life. So just keep working.
So, Jason, how do you convince clients to have you present virtually, especially those clients where you might have had an in-person gig booked and now they need to cancel that? How do you convince them to go virtual?
Well, I mean, I'm mostly just showing them videos like this, that it actually works. And I get them on the phone or on a Zoom call, and I go, hey, look around my office. Look how this looks. I do some music, some comedy. I might take them over to my showroom where the piano's at, and I show them that it's possible, that we can still do PowerPoint. We can still do all of these things. And I'm telling you, not a lot of them are convinced even still. They're just like, we need you live. And so what I'd recommend for anybody that's struggling with that like I am is to say, yes, we'll still do it live someday. And right now, let's just set up a call. Let's just do something for your people. I want to add value so that when I come to your event live, they are freaking out because they've been following me on social media. They like me from the call we did during a time of need. Please let me do something. And those clients are letting me do that. And to be candid with you, that is leading to the work. And so offering to do value for service rather than how much can I make for this one phone call, I'm just giving to clients that are not demanding their deposits back. And I say, I can still help you. That's how it's been working for me.
Awesome. Marquita, we are in a state of flux, and anytime you're in a state of flux and you're trying to maybe reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, do what Jason's did, and like at least at the very least incorporate virtual, there's a lot of different paths. There's a lot of different things to know. And sometimes you run down a path and it's a dead end, or you run down a path, you just get something done and now that's outdated and you need to shift and do something else. So how do you deal with that? And how do you stay out of overwhelm mode? Because it can be overwhelming.
Right. My dad used to say something. He's passed, but he used to say something that really has stuck with me. Remember the main thing. He would say, always when you get in a situation, remember the main thing. So if you're finding that you're running into a dead end road, let's say, for example, you had a whole bunch of bookings and all of them canceled, and you're like, that looks like it sounds like a dead road. Then what you can do is, what is the main thing? What is it I'm doing? What was I doing with that audience? What do I believe in when I get on a stage? What is my promise to that audience? And how can I still give that promise? And so kind of going back to what Jason said from the standpoint, but there's so many different ways. It may cause you to think out of the box and get uncomfortable. And you also may have to get comfortable asking someone that is half your age for help and being okay with that and saying, listen, slow way down. Let's start all over again. And so you have to be comfortable asking for help. I read something that was so good. If you're the smartest person at that level, you have to get comfortable being the person with the least amount of knowledge at the next level. So as you go to a next stage, as you go to a next introduction of a phase or concept, you may not be at the top of the level. Be okay being the student at some point in time. And so if you find that it's a dead end, ask for help. If that doesn't work, then you pull back and look at it for a while, sit with it and say, what did I need to learn from that? Maybe I was trying to do something that's not for me. I know right now there's a big spin. Everyone seems like they're doing podcasts and they're creating their own podcast. And I'm like, you know what? I first started to join that bet and I said, you know what? I just want to be the guest. Let me do what I'm best at and not put that energy and time on trying to become the person that's hosting the podcast. Let me be the guest as opposed to creating it. So give yourself permission to be you. Give yourself permission to ask for help. And just because you ask for help in one area does not mean that you're a failure. It's something that they don't know that you make look easy as well. So be okay being the student is really key, and that'll help you. Because right now, I literally, with having my college-age daughters, I'm asking, how can we do this? They're like, why aren't you using this app Why aren't you doing that? Because I do TV segments. And so the TV station is not allowing us to come in right now. So they said, you gotta, record from home. And so my husband is now the video guy. So today I recorded a graduation, a commencement. I was a commencement speaker. So they had me do that virtually. He was the recorder. Then I did the TV segment for next week virtually. And so I had to get a tripod and all that stuff. And that seems really simple to Jason. But for me, it took me 20 minutes to figure out which one is it. Because I can't go into Best Buy and look at it. So now I'm trying to compare. And so I said, listen, I just asked one of my daughters, which one would you get? What is the best case scenario? So be willing to ask the question and become the student again in some areas.
Have you found that that philosophy of if you're the smartest person now, when you go to that next level, you won't be, right? And I think that's a brilliant philosophy. Have you found that that helps you remain grateful and in gratitude and appreciation mode?
Yes, it absolutely. If you have an ounce of pride that's starting to set in, it will remove that very quickly from you. And so and it will allow you to be teachable, because if you feel like you know it, we've all had an encounter people where they say that they want help, but when you're trying to give help, they have all the answers and they don't ever get everything that could have come from that conversation. So try not to be Bob, okay? So try not to be Bob, and make sure that you're really listening. Even if you think you know the answer, listen. What is it? I mean, Jason is totally getting a call from me because I need a microphone. I need some of that stuff in that space. I don't need all of it because that would stress me out. But I need a few items, the most key items. He's getting a call from me.
So, Jason, let's say that you've done all the stuff that we've talked about. You've focused on your business, your family, and yourself. You've been all in. You have kept all of your promises, right? Why might you still not feel fulfilled?
Yeah, I mean, even if you get to a place where you're feeling you've kept all the promises, and let's say you have, well, that's incredible, first of all, but also a lot of the things that happen when it comes to that point is that you've probably spent so much time giving to your work, and that's fulfilling. And then you're giving to your family, and that's fulfilling. And then yourself, and you've sort of got to find a way to get out of yourself just a little bit, out of your own way even, not to break any promises to yourself, but to also think, how can I make and create more community? And the challenge comes in that we sometimes we are in our little cave, our little hole here, and we're like, okay, let's just take care of us. We're fine with us. And when we start to open our eyes and look around at what's happening or what's going on around us, there are people that are really needing our help. So imagine if our viewers were to choose a promise to make to the community. And maybe the promise would be the actual community and then the online community, because we live in a community that's a physical place. I know as a family, we've chosen specific people and families as neighbors that are in our area that we go drop off, like homemade sourdough bread, because that's my thing my wife's learned how to make now. And so we drop off the bread and then we doorbell ditch and run. That's a wonderful way to serve the community. When it comes to the online community, think about what your friends and peers are doing online. And instead of just scrolling through or wondering why you didn't get very many likes, what if you did something really unique and just liked somebody's stuff and just commented and told them, good job, I like what you did, and maybe even share it, because that is called community. Within NSA and as speakers, if we're willing to encourage each other in this capacity and at this time, your friendships will be deepened and strengthened. And when we do see each other in person, we're like, I love you, even though it's a 6 foot part hug. It was so weird. But how are we doing that type of community? That's the next level of the promise, I believe, in making it so that we are fulfilled by the end of the day, having served our job, our family, ourselves, and our community. Because if we're only thinking about ourselves or what's inside this house, it's not enough. The world is so big. It's so diverse. I didn't even know Marquita before this opportunity with you, Marquita. I'm so excited to now know you, and that's community. That's what NSA is providing, and I'm grateful.
Marquita, have you also found that serving others help you? And if so, how?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You can, I have to go back to the experience of losing a spouse because that was like one of the toughest things that I ever had faced. And in the midst of that, I was like, just roll it up, throw away, turn off the lights, I'm done. But in the midst, I started discovering that there were other widows and I think we are still who we truly are in the positive or in the negative. We still are really, that's inside of us. When you are really a helper and you want to serve people, that manifests even with out of your turmoil. And so in the midst of that, I ended up connecting with other widows and talking. And before I knew it, it was a whole widow network. And I was hosting a brunch and a pre-Valentine's Galentine. But in the midst of that and giving and, in that, I wasn't charging them anything. I didn't want anything from them other than to come together and out of what we shared in common, a bad situation, to be able to support one another. But I will tell you, healing manifested for me like never before because there is healing in when you help others. And so during this time, I would encourage you, if you really find yourself in a low place, figure out how you can give whatever it is that you really need. It's kind of like if you can give that to somebody else, if what you have is not enough, then you must be in a place to be able to serve someone else from that standpoint. And it really does. It lightens your load, and it does manifest healing. I can totally attest to that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so nice sometimes just to focus on others and to give back to others, especially to some of your earlier stories, Marquita. It makes you really grateful for the things that you do have, right? There's so many things we take for granted. The fact that we go to bed at night in an actual bed, we have a roof over our
Yes.
house, that we're warm, that we have a full stomach. Like we just can take that for granted. And I think helping others helps us also realize all of the blessings that we have and really reward that attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
So Jason, how has your philosophy of these daily promises changed over the year or helped you over the year?
Oh, well, it's helped a ton. I mean, of course, by shifting between just setting a goal daily to making a promise daily, or having a couple of goals that you make and then you break, rather having a promise that you keep, it shifts the language for yourself to say, what's a non-negotiable for my day? And in a time of frustration and fear, especially now where we're like, what's happening even today and tomorrow, and especially into the future now, while we're in the midst of all of this, can we still keep a promise and can we still have peace? Because I know that even though I've felt frustration and other things, I can still feel peace when I make a promise and I keep it. And the power of that, even though my calendar has been wiped clean and I'm looking at it going, I pray it comes back in the fall when they're all rebooking. But what can I do now? I can share online. I can share positive things. I can create something new of my life and with my family. These are the most important people in my life. And your family is something that is so precious and valuable. How can you help them to discover their strengths and talents while they're with you? Doesn't matter their age, but they all have signature moves and incredible gifts and skills, and we're teaching them, we're helping them to find it, because when you understand what you bring to the table, you will always be a level of essential. It's your signature moves. It's those things that only you can do. As a dad, I'm always the raptor. I'm always bringing what I can because that's all I've got. And so I'm thinking, to make it a wonderful world, I'm going to do what? I'm going to sing a song that I feel makes it a wonderful world. You remember this guy, Louis Armstrong? I hope it brings you some joy today. Here we go. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do, do-boo-boo-doo.
They're really saying, oh yes, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. Yeah, but you do they learn much more, yes, than I ever know. Yes, and I think to myself, what would you do? What a wonderful world. Oh yeah, ba-ba-da-do-boo-ba-da-da. And yes, I think to myself, this one's for you, and I say, what a wonderful world.
You have to share your voice. You have to still give what you have. It's your signature moves, and that's your promise to share it with the world, whatever it looks like.
That was amazing. Marquita, do you have any closing comments for us?
I would just encourage you to be gentle and kind to yourself, number one. And being kind to yourself, you have to take care of you. And so Jason and I, when we were talking before about walking, one of the things that I do in the morning is walking early in the morning, because it helps me after I get up and everything to just, one, helps me be healthy during this time. And two, it helps me to feel like that the fresh air does something for you. So figure out what you need so that you can give to yourself before you start serving everyone else, because everyone else is going to need you, and you will be present for them, because that is what we do, right? But in the midst of that, figure out how to be kind to yourself, how to give to yourself, and then how do you show up for others and continue to show up for them. And during this time, it can be very tempting to think that everything is ending, but I can promise you there are going to be some opportunities. Where you're at now is not your ending. This is just a pause. And when you come out of this, you can be bitter or you can be better. But guess what? Our actions, our words, and our thoughts are what's going to cause us to be better. And we're NSA. We better. We do it better.
With that, Jason and Marquita, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your inspiration and your words of wisdom. Really, really appreciate you. Very grateful. For everybody else who's attended, just a reminder, you can review this recording along with all of the other mentioned resources and prior recordings at nsaspeaker.org/COVID-19. Stay healthy and stay safe.